This is Mike Bickle. He's the founder of International House of Prayer in Kansas City, and he agreed to step down from ministry after he was accused of sexual misconduct words is hard, by multiple women. Not that we should have to, but let's talk about how this breaks the church and how to fix it. This is Church is Lame.
I feel like we should be eating pancakes from talking about this story.
Thank you for, I set it up, you smack it down. Yeah, I think it's very fitting that the acronym for this church is IHOP, because it's all sweet and carbs and no good for you.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. So we've done a couple of these kind of stories in the past. We're going to try to present this to you with maybe a new point of view and a new take on it. But this is everything horrible that you think it is. Mike Bickle, the IHOP, the International House of Prayers, announced that he will not be preaching or teaching. He will not be interacting with the public or on social media or participating in the church's 24-hour prayer room. These allegations span several decades. Quote, "We have found these allegations of clergy sexual abuse by Mike Bickle to be credible and long-standing," unquote. The credibility of these allegations is not based on any one experience or any one victim, but the collective and corroborating testimony of the experiences of several victims.
and it all sounds
then-
fairly damning.
It all sounds fair, but once again, this is all par for the course, right? Nothing new. And par for the course, and this to me is the even more infuriating, words is hard, the even more infuriating part than just the sexual abuse is instantly they go into, not my fault. Quote, "When these allegations were brought to our attention, we were shocked. We could never have imagined inappropriate conduct with women as something we would never need to be concerned about. The allegations seemed out of character to the man we thought we knew, but they were so serious we could not ignore them." So this is not the guy we know and love, but hey, if there's an allegation out there, we take it seriously.
I mean, that's pretty good on its own. But I have this general concern that the International House of Prayer is some kind of like a cult, sort of a thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's a Pentecostal thing, and their whole deal is they're trying to do, have this place be open, 24/7, so people can come in and pray and do whatever they're gonna do. But a dude that I used to know for a while was very involved with it, and just the way he described it, it's a weird place from what most of us are used to in a church. And
Yeah.
maybe it's just because it's such a different thing that it just seems off to me.
Yeah.
But when you can have, some girl wander in there at, 3 a.m. and the only person there is some one staff member, you're sort of setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Rarely have I seen a parachurch organization that so finally hones down into, this is what we're about. We are just an organization that believes in seeing God's power and miracles work through prayer alone. Why would you think that you could, ignore the rest of the Bible and just, we're just this one thing? That just kind of befuddles me in that sense, that a group of people could collectively say, yeah, this is the path forward.
There's so much to the Christian life that, to single out one thing seems super wacky. But I guess if I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, I mean, it's kind of cool that you would have a place dedicated to 24/7 prayer where people can come together without having to schedule. They can just come to this place and do that. Yeah, it's there is also that threat, and we've talked about it before, right? Where it's if you spend, all your time in prayer about something, but you never to do it, then how is God supposed to work through you in doing it? It's
Right.
you're just offloading all that responsibility. God, you take care of this. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting dichotomy, right? On the one hand, on the one end of the spectrum, for those of you who don't believe in spectrums, the church is full of them. On the one end of the spectrum, you have prosperity churches, name it, claim it, celebrity pastorship, right? We are just going to collect lots of money and get rich. We're going to tell you how to live your best life now and how to be purpose driven, how to feel good about yourself. But we're not actually going to do much good in the world. We're just going to tell you, we're just going to have you buy a book or a DVD set or listen to our online sermon series so you can get better as a personal thing. And then what you do with your life is up to you, right? That's one end. And then, like, it seems like International House of Prayer is like another end of the spectrum. Like, we're also not going to do anything of significance in this world. But by all means, come into our buildings, throw some money in the pot, and pray your heart away, you know? It's just amazing how many different ways there are to do nothing, you know?
The church is just full of the best ideas of how to do nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe second only to, you know, like the marketing firms that do work for, you know, fossil fuel companies. But
true enough,
I still think that the church comes out ahead on this. It's like a lot of this whole, well, like if you just believe the right things and you think the right things, then God will transform you and then you'll do stuff. Not like if you try to go where God is doing stuff or you like ask God to empower you to do the stuff that you're doing, like then he will work. So it seems a bit weird. I mean, like when I'm reading the Old Testament, it's a lot of, hey, you dummy, you know, get up and do the thing.
Exactly.
You know, it's like my next sermon that I'm preparing is on, you know, Joshua, which is fun because he yells at the Israelites for basically being, you know, impotent and unable to follow God.
Right.
You know, but it's like, cause it's on them to do the thing. I mean, God will give us some sort of a power, but like, yeah, we do need to act.
Exactly. There's so much focus now on should be to be the most satisfying version of you that you can be. and as you get there and once you attain it, that is equivalent to living the spiritual life. And nothing could be further from the truth. Like you said, the spiritual life is a life of doing. There's a thing that needs to be done, and we are here to do it. And it has nothing to do with how you feel about yourself. You know, ask the Israelites who are wandering in the deserts for years and years how they felt about themselves. Ask them how, like, when they were slaves to Pharaoh, how they felt about themselves. You know, that is how you feel about yourself couldn't be further from the point. The work that's been set before us is what's about. So right after this break, we're going to talk about like how this breaks the church beyond what just made Mark and I mad right off the cuff. All right, we're back. How this breaks the church. I've got some thoughts.
Are any of them like painfully obvious?
All of them are painfully obvious. Yes.
That's my favorite kind of obvious.
Hopefully our rage will be entertaining, right? Even though my doctor is quite persistent in telling me that my rage is not helpful to anybody. I beg to disagree.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so first, what level of whiplash do you have to go to the emergency room having turned your collective leadership heads so quickly, time and time again over the decades, ignoring this guy's misdeeds, to put it nicely? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like there's no way you can be in relationship with this guy on a personal or professional or ministerial level and not know what's going on. The amount of times and the amount of people who just kind of go, oh, I know nothing, I see nothing, I hear nothing, I feel nothing. It's just unfathomable. It's not just this dude that should be losing his position. It should be all the people that enabled it in the first place.
I mean, because you know the leadership of this organization, you know, when they were seeing just all the stuff with the Catholic Church, they were shaking their fingers and being like, see, this is what happens when you don't let your priests marry. You know, they get their thing with children. Maybe should have precipitated them going, hey, what can we do to make sure that our organization and our staff doesn't fall into that trap? But that never seems to be the reaction, right? You know,
never. Yep. Okay, let's keep this train rolling.
Dude.
Number 2, what kind of idiot level leadership doesn't instantly can this guy, like fire him, like walking papers? Here you go. What is it my father-in-law says? Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
Well, I mean, it takes time to like really figure out like what kind of golden parachute to give somebody.
Exactly right. Like, do we just give him a year's salary, or do we give them 5 years salary for going away quietly?
Yeah. And idiot level leadership is unfortunately super common everywhere. And like we've complained about it. And anybody listening to this, like you've had a job, you know what we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just,
and it's like they didn't even fire him. They just sidelined him over these allegations.
yeah.
It's like, fire the guy. Like, it's not like you don't have grounds. It's right there in the Bible, above reproach.
And the thing is, like you use the word, and the article, that we've seen all use the word allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
Because it's an allegation. It's not something that's been proved in court. So it's like, I think that's kind of the excuse. Like, well, like if we park the person off to this, like we park them off behind the building, we put a rain cover over them, and then we'll deal with that once we get the hard details. I mean, it's not the worst thing that we've seen. I mean, as long as the guy's not maybe still on the payroll, then it feels a bit janky.
No, if he wasn't fired, he has to be on the payroll, right?
I mean, you could always suspend somebody so they're still, legally an employee or whatever.
These are hairs we shouldn't have to split, is my point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they did, like the article said, multiple credible witnesses. In the church, we don't need to have the legal system dictate how we react to that kind of behavior. We can take the initiative and go, you know what? You don't work here anymore. Sorry, don't call us for a reference.
Bye-bye. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on. You and I talk about this constantly. People think we're broken records at this point.
Radical accountability.
Radical transparency, right? Yet another example how the most prominent people in leadership in all of these mega churches and prosperity gospel places, and name your big Christian organization, the most prominent people in leadership put themselves in the position of being the least known among the people, among the leaders, among the congregation. They're the people that you know the least, even though they talk the most.
I've got no response for that.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing, right? Once again, what is a pastor? You are, at the very least, like the smallest definition is you are a professional communicator, right? You get up on that pulpit once a week and you have a 20-minute message. So you would think that communicating the same message to a large number of people every flippin' week, somebody would get to know the real you. It's my contention that the people that got to know the real him just kept turning their faces and turning away from the abuse happening. And then everybody else who's shocked and appalled, they were lured in by the facade instead of the reality of not only this man, but International which is hard.
About to say,
International House of Prayer is about.
We're about to see international heresy.
Probably not too far from the truth. As you alluded to in the beginning, do we even have to say this at this point? But cheating on your spouse and sexually abusing women is bad, and you shouldn't do it ever.
I mean, I don't know, man. Bible seems kind of like big gray area here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bible actually goes in the opposite direction and holds up women and affirms their place of not even just authority, but of respect, of centrality within the church, and centrality within the family. Like, women are not to be abused. Women are to be cherished, right? The same way that men are to be respected and cherished, women are to be respected and cherished. They are not sub anything, right? They are not our playthings that we use and dispose of. They're not like cars, I'll just sell it because the newest model is boring to me,
Yeah.
And so I just don't even understand how anybody who claims to be a Jesus follower excuses this instead of, at least at the very least, admit that there's something wrong with you. Even if you're not going to fix it, at least admit, man, I've got a screw loose in a major way. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening here. This dude just seems to be like, man, I'm doing my job, and what happens in my personal life is my business. My business. I'm doing business. I'm a businessman. Let me know if you get that reference, internet.
I certainly don't get the reference, but
are you not old enough for Beverly Hills Cop?
oh my gosh. I mean, I'm old enough. I just maybe haven't watched it since I was 16.
Oh, it's one of the few truly excellent Eddie Murphy movies, from like the beginning of his movie career.
Yeah.
Like now with the Dr. Dolittle and stuff, he's doing all sorts of cool things. But in the beginning, there were like some hits and a whole lot of misses.
Yeah.
But the original Beverly Hills Cop, I'm a businessman. I'm doing business. And if you can't see me because you're listening to the audio podcast, I'm snapping my fingers and waving them around very, very crazily. Okay. All right.
I know, but
so obvious. Okay.
But like, here's the thing: is like like bringing up Eddie Murphy. Of course, like Eddie Murphy is the kind of person that like we look at as being kind of like this whole other type of being, right? Because like he's this professional actor, he's a comedian. He's got this skill set, and pastors are often treated the same way. Whereas Eddie Murphy is placed very much in the public eye, and you've got paparazzi will follow him and try to catch him in whatever mischief he might get into. We don't have paparazzi for pastors.
Right.
I mean, maybe we need that, or like some sort of like, I don't know, like Apple needs to make like a chastity belt for pastors or something that will like text us when they're like, being touched in the naughty place or something. I don't know. I mean, how's that for a hot take?
Yeah, that's a hot take. That I'm not sure I'm going to go there with you. That might be a step too far.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
We need better systems of accountability than just, hey, man, we trust you when you go incommunicado from the hours of 8 to midnight when you should be home with your family,
Yeah, I mean, and pastors, it sucks to have to say it, but like we should never treat our pastors like they're some sort of different species of Christian. Like they're just normal Christians that happen to have a skill set of getting in front of people and talking about, I mean, theoretically, what's in the Bible, unless you're Joel Osteen, which you just babble on about random nonsense.
Right.
But like the longer I think too, like the longer we know somebody, the more we trust them, right? That can also lead to like a decrease in the amount of scrutiny that a person receives. And that's dangerous.
And I think that's a great segue into our How to Fix the Church. So let's take a break. And as soon as we're back from our break, we'll talk about how to fix the church.
So how do we fix it?
Let me say this as a setup.
All right.
We tend to think about pastoral care as a circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see lots of pastors kind of flame out. Like when they're young and right out of seminary, like their youth and their enthusiasm will take them through this period. And then at a certain point, all the work and so little care that's reciprocated back tends to flame them out, right? And what's happening is the pastors put all this time and energy and care into their congregations, and nobody ever told them it's not your congregation's job to put that care back into you.
Yeah.
Right? Their job is to learn from you and then to go out into the world and do cool stuff for the sake of the gospel, right? The job of caring for you should have been taken on by people through your journey, right? The pastors before you, your seminary teachers, your mentors as you were interning at churches and coming on staff as a young person,
Mm-hmm.
all these other figures who've been there, who've managed not to flame out and come out the other side solid and healthy with solid families and a clear expectation of what their job is and what their job isn't, right? Those are the people who are supposed to be caring for you. So it's not a circle. It's more like a tree where, Jesus is the roots and the trunk. And then we have limbs that come out. It's like generations of people caring for the next generation of people, caring for the next generation of people. And that's how the cycle of care should go. And that's what we need to fix is like the circular thing doesn't work because anybody can break the circle at any time.
Yeah. It's important to note, that we need systems of care to be in place. Not merely the intention. It needs to be something well laid out and well thought out and very clear. Because
Exactly
the
right.
moment there's ambiguity, and who's responsible for what, you can fall into failure. Failing to plan is planning to fail, like that sort of a thing. So it's like never, like we shouldn't be afraid of having to make those systems
Exactly.
as people in churches, because they are for your protection and the protection of your brothers and sisters in Christ. That's a good thing.
Exactly right. And so I say that as a setup. So if we have that care cycle set up correctly, then we can talk about the accountability cycle.
Yeah.
And the accountability, in my opinion, the accountability cycle can be circular, right?
Yeah.
So the pastor is accountable to teach and to steward and to prepare his flock to do the work of the kingdom, right? That's the pastor's job. And that's what the congregation holds him accountable to do his job. And he holds the congregation accountable to learn and be teachable, to be sponges, to take what he says for 30 minutes or an hour and not just disregard it, but to take it and put it into action. And there can be that circle where, yes, I as a congregation expect something from you as a pastor, and you as a pastor expect something from us. And one of the things we expect from you is not to cheat on your wife and abuse women. And the minute you do that, we are going to string you up and set you on fire.
That's why my church has a barrel of napalm handy, just in case.
It's like, you should definitely have something flammable and something that creates a spark somewhere nearby.
Yeah, at all times, and then, of course, ropes and feathers and tar, just for every occasion, be prepared.
I'm here for it. Okay, and then, of course, I'm going to let you have the final word with what should always be the final word on fixing this problem.
Radical transparency and accountability.
Thank you very much. It's my best. I can't even do an Elvis voice because my voice just doesn't go that low. Like, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Radical transparency, of course. Like, we have to be willing, not only be transparent in ourselves, but we have to be, what's the word? We have to be fearless in expecting transparency from others. Like, look, if you're not willing to be transparent in your life, then you are not qualified to be the pastor of our church. Full stop.
Very much so.
Like,
and we need to, as, people go to churches, we need to, create a culture of, I'll say, safety. We should always, our churches, right? We should always be a safe place for people to talk about their challenges and their difficulties. I'm not saying that we have to be able to get up on, in front of the pulpit and just confess every sin we've ever done to people.
Right. It's not a 12-step program. Right.
But at the same time, if somebody were to do that, the church shouldn't, be reacting, being appalled. They should, react with love. And, and of course, if what's something somebody has done, requires that you take them out of a position of leadership or responsibility, you do that in order to deal with the sin.
Exactly right. We've talked about this a lot, and it's important that we keep talking about it. Discipleship, discipline. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is simply, like when you drive the car and you fall asleep and you hit the rumble strips, and you go, "Oh, I need to correct myself. I need the discipline to get back between the lines of safety." And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about punishing people. We're talking about a healthy church is a disciplined church, and discipline is everywhere. The congregation, the leadership, the paid staff, the unpaid staff, the whole experience is a disciplined experience where people who come in the door who've never met Jesus, they are altogether undisciplined in their faith. And it takes a lifetime of doing this together, and we refine our discipline.
Yeah, I think that's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's not all that needs to be said, or else we'd be out of a job.
Well, I mean, given that we're, 29 minutes into recording this.
I hear that. Okay. So, we are churches lame. You may have listened to this episode and think, man, Mark and Scott, they really have it out for the church. And nothing could be further from the truth. Words is hard. We love the church. We participate in church. We want to see churches do better. But we can't do that if all we ever talk about is the cool stuff, right? We got to be willing to talk about the things that can be done better. And we think things like not sexually abusing women is probably something that can be improved upon, right? So if you got something to say, please, like YouTube, we love comments there. Give us the thumbs down, the thumbs up, the super thanks and all that stuff. Podcast, give us a rating and review with your favorite podcast player. Or if you have a lot to say, shoot us an email, churcheslamepodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, go in peace and serve the Lord and keep the matches handy.
Hey, if you got something out of this episode, you want to see more content just like that, Up above one of my shoulders here is going to be a card that says Leadership Lunacy. Feel free to click on that to check out more episodes just like this. Thanks a lot.